that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whooping.
Homelessness in the district and the high poverty rates in areas of the city that have seen the highest number of arrests. And yet, Washington, D.C. is...
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hi, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bowden.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
You can check out our website at truthertalk.com, read our essays, see our archived shows, see our Conspiracy Realist t-shirt if you're interested in that. And we also have official stories by Liam Sheff available at our store. So, anywho, today, Virstyne, we're going to be doing we have two interviewees that we're going to be talking to about technology.
Ooh.
Exciting, right?
Yeah, it's exciting and intriguing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I think there are definitely some, obviously everybody thinks about the pros of technology, but, there's not a lot of conversation going on about the cons, and it's neutral, like money. People say, oh, money's evil. Well, it's not money is evil. Like $5 bills don't kill people, but it's right. What the people do with the money, and the same thing with technology. It's not evil per se, but it's what are you going to do with this power that we have now, right?
Right.
So I'm interested to get together and start talking about that today.
Yeah, and it's difficult though because some of this stuff is very addictive, like internet and social networking, Facebooks, and we talk about this stuff a lot because we have experiences and with people on the internet and the social networking atmosphere where they can get nasty and rude and all that kind of stuff. But even when you're not really out there trying to do that, it can still become like addicting, and you spend a lot of time on it. So it really seems like it's all about trying to find a balance with regards to getting the benefit of it, but then pulling away from it when you need to like get outside and do something. Because how many times have you been like, oh, I'm going to just check my messages, and then all of a sudden like 2 hours go by and you're like, oh, I'm still on the internet. 3 hours,
yeah.
Like a big chunk of time.
It's so addictive. I mean, I like to learn. I love art. My thing is I post stuff. I barely write what I'm doing. I don't write my personal business as much, but I love to put pictures and art and political art and quotes and see what other people are doing and learn things, and then somebody will post something and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and then it's an article, and then I'll go read about it, and then I'll read the links from the article, and then like you said, 2 hours have gone by.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's very, I guess if you have an intention and that's your intent to learn something or you are researching something, it's good, but then it's not so good when you don't plan to spend so much time, and it goes by so fast.
It does go by really fast, and that's where, I think you have to schedule your day and not, put too much time into it, because it goes by fast, and then a lot of times you can neglect other things. At least I do. I find, the house is still a mess, and I'm like, oh man, where did my day go? Now I have to do all this laundry, and I don't have time, or I have to go out and, go to my garden or do something outside in the world, and so it's nice to balance it, because there are pros and cons, like you say. I mean, the pro being obvious that we have access to information, like you say, you like art, you get access to all this like art. It's just so accessible. It's just, you see it constantly, just this steady stream of photos and paintings and all these things that you're interested in, articles, and so, I mean, news, and you can get an alternative view, like the access to the alternative media, would not be what it is were it not for technology would not be for the internet, you know. And I mean, I've met great people. As much as we've talked about the jerks that we've come across on the internet, we've also met some really cool people and people I've become friends with in the real world, you know. And you take it off the internet into the real world, and you actually, you know, become friends with people, or you hang out with them, or you get to meet them. And
oh yeah, well, I was living in Asia. You know, it's so funny because my best friend made my Facebook account. I was so not into Facebook. I just wasn't at first, right? And everybody, I barely used MySpace or Friendster. And my friends got me to use those too. And then Facebook came out. I'm just like, whatever, you know. I had other hobbies and other interests, and then when I moved to Asia, that's when I really got hooked, so to speak. But I mean, it allowed me to stay in touch with my family and my friends while I was overseas. Had I not had Facebook, it probably would have been. I think I would have been okay still, but it would have been a completely different experience, and maybe I would have been more homesick. I think. Right. I didn't really get homesick until I was about to come back home. After the second year, you know.
Yeah, I didn't have any of those accounts. I didn't have Friendster. I didn't have MySpace. I never did any social networking whatsoever until, I want to say, like 2009, 2010, when I started writing my blog. And when I was writing my blog and I was researching how to, like, put out information about your blog, it was like, oh, you got to get social networking accounts, you got to get Facebook and Twitter. So I signed up for Facebook and Twitter, and at first I didn't use it very much, and then over the years I just started becoming more and more hooked on it, and you know, like almost 2,000 friends later, you're you know, it's a way to. It's a tool that we use a lot to reach out to our guests. Most of our guests we write to on Facebook, and we find them easier than we would if we had to, like, go researching and find out and write them a letter and things like that.
Even though you've gotten some letters out, you have to break out the pen and paper for some people.
Yeah, we do, and we're not afraid to break out the pen and paper. I know. But it's funny that people don't even think like that anymore. They're like, oh yeah, you know, we've told people that we do that, and they're like, what? You know, like that would have never occurred to them.
So like, but for us, exist?
Yeah, but for us, I mean, we just thought to do that for a few people. We won't say who. We don't want them to be bombarded with snail mails, but we have gotten some guests that way. But yeah, I mean, as far as technology goes, I think our first guest is the CEO of Team Black Sheep, one of the creators, and which is, if you guys look it up on the internet, they make these drone planes.
Well, let me correct you for a second. They make these shells for cameras. They don't make the cameras, but you have to buy the camera. But you can buy the shell that attaches to the camera, and then you can fly the camera. Via remote control. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry, that's just a common misconception. So I just wanted to.
No, thank you for correcting me on that. Yeah, so these guys, and it's really neat. If you look at their website, you can see that they get these aerial shots, and they can see things that you wouldn't be able to see any other way.
It's like Superman vision, Superman perspective.
It totally is. It's total Superman perspective. So it's just really interesting, and how, I guess, you know, if our government has access to these types of technology, then these guys are offering it to the public, which is sort of cool if you can use it and not. But then, you know, then there's the con of it is the aspect of, well, then people can use it to spy on other people, which is kind of.
You mean like the government is doing right now?
Yeah, I know, but people that spy on other people, like if you had a really serious stalker issue. Yeah,
that's true. But
you know, you'd be like in your bedroom, and I mean, that'd be really horrible, right?
Yeah, it's very true. But the thing is, government are people. So the thing is, when we talk about the government, we forget to really think that they're people, and they have their idiosyncrasies, and they have their flaws, just like any other person does. And I guess we think that because they're government, you know, they've taken an oath, and they're there to protect the people. The people meaning the people that I guess that aren't in government, but you know, at the end of the day, they're humans just like everybody else. So even if you're in a position of power, there might be some people that choose to handle that with a certain amount of responsibility, but then there are also going to be people that are going to abuse that power because they're human,
Well, the government itself is an entity, and the government is not a person. But the people who work in government are people. Those are people.
Yeah.
The government itself is an entity. It's not an individual. It's not a person. So, in essence, it doesn't exist. But the people who work for it or work for this entity that we give. As we've talked on our show before when we interviewed Clint Richardson, it's a faith-based system. So, in other words, it only exists because we believe in it. And so the government itself only exists because we believe in it. Now, having said that, there are people that work for this faith-based system, and those are real people. and they're not divine, and they're fallible, and they're flawed,
but
and all of that.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to say. We give divinity to them, like they can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I mean, I to be honest, I think most people who seek power have a little something in them that makes them a little kooky to begin with. I mean, we had an old interview we did with Stuart Rhodes, who's the founder of Oath Keepers. And I remember when we were talking to him, because it was right before the election, and he was saying, there's a certain characteristic of a person that goes after that type of position of power. Now, that's not to say that's everybody. There are some people who go into government because they think that they're going to help.
Yeah.
But
heroes, that hero.
Yeah, they have the hero syndrome. They want to come in, they want to help, they want to fix all these problems because they look at it from this outsider's perspective, and you go, God, that would be so easy to fix. All you got to do is this, and this. Let me get in there, and I'll take care of it. And then once they get in, they realize it doesn't work that way.
It's a more complicated problem than they thought, right?
Well, it's not that the problems are complicated. There's people blocking you from fixing them in the simple way. I mean,
well, that is complicated, though, right? Because you think going in, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then you get in and you discover that there's a much more complex system that prevents you from solving the problems the way you think you could have solved them.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I can give you an example that can illustrate this pretty clearly. My dad was working for my little brother's school for a while, and he was working as, I guess, like a PTA position type thing. And they're allotted a certain amount of money from the government. The government will say, okay, well, this amount of money is going to go towards you guys buying new computers. Well, they didn't need new computers because they had a whole new set of computers that were donated by Apple. So the school was already furnished with brand new computers. But they had this money allotted for computers. They couldn't use it for anything else. They could only use it for computers, even though they didn't need the computers. So you would think, well, okay, I can go in there and balance the budget because you get X amount of money. So you just write the check for whatever it is that you need. If you need it for pencils, you need it for paper. Meanwhile, the teachers have to buy pencils and papers. They have to ask the parents for donations for things like books. And yet they have all this money, but they can't use it for the things that they need because the government says, no, you have to use it for computers. Well, we don't need it for computers.
Right,
Yeah. So it's like, my dad had this notion of, well, I could just go in and help them fix the budget. Obviously, somebody doesn't understand math or doesn't know how to, balance a checkbook or something. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is that there's all these people, these obstacles, and they force you they were forcing them to use the money for this particular thing that they didn't even need, and then everything else was, they had to, beg for money. So it's weird. The system is set up to be weird.
Well, and they make people slave to regulations. They can't think outside of what it says on the paper, what it says in the book.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that they couldn't think outside of it. They knew what needed to be done. They just couldn't take the money. They weren't allowed access to the money because the money was provided, it was a government pool. It's our tax money that we pay into providing, things for the school. We provide, supplies for the school. And they were saying, yeah, but you can't just use them for supplies. You have to use it for this specifically. But that's government bureaucracy. That's their intervention. So, the principal understood what they needed. My dad understood what they needed. Everybody understood what they needed. So it wasn't that they were slaves to regulation. They just couldn't access it. And so the point is that you can have the intention to go into a government position and thinking that you're going to be able to do good, but then you can't. Because there's other people in positions that write these regulations and force you to use the money a certain way or to do certain things, and you have to go that way. There's no other way around it. And so it's really, really weird. And I think it's set up to fail. You know, and I've experienced this too, like having to deal with the system a little bit to access therapies and things for my son. And let me tell you, it's so ridiculously, like, confusing. There's so much red tape. They make it, and then there's all these people that work there that are totally irrelevant, that don't matter, that they could just fire those people and you'd have all the access to all this money from these people's salaries that are useless. And yet they just, you know, nobody seems to get it. It's very strange. But, anyway, I don't mean to digress into all that tangent. But, so we're going to go ahead and take a break, but when we get back, we're going to be talking to Team Black Sheep. What's
Raphael Pritchard. Please forgive me if I said your name wrong.
Raphael Pritchard, and then we'll interview him first, and then we'll take another short break. And then when we get back, we didn't mention our second guest, who is Jason Burmis, from one of the filmmakers from the movie Loose Change, and he also recently did the motion picture Shade, the motion picture, which you can find on YouTube and everything like that. So, a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll be talking to our two guests, so please stay tuned.
I disagree. This is not the champagne of beers.
It's a slogan. It's not
just champagne.
Beer. I know,
champagne has to be from the Champagne part of France. That's why it's called champagne. Everything else is just sparkling wine.
It's a marketing
No.
tool. It's a marketing
Look
tool.
it up.
Just beer. Do you want me to look it up?
Yeah,
Google
please.
it? Okay,
Google
fine.
it.
I'll Google it
just
for
for me.
I got it.
Just so I can feel good.
Sure. They're going to ask.com?
Yes,
Okay.
Ask Jeeves will have it.
The internet's out.
What?
It's not working.
No,
it's not working. There's no connection.
No, it's not Netgear.
It says no wireless connections available.
Do you want me to reset the router? I can reset the router.
Yeah, can you check that?
Yeah, let me look. Okay, router's
You reset it?
It's reset.
You wait 45 seconds?
I waited for the light to blink 3 times and then stay long.
Is the orange light on?
Okay.
Orange lights to go.
Orange lights to go.
3 lights below it are blinking.
2 lights are blinking. 1 is red.
I don't know. I've never seen a red light when the internet was working. I'm just fine with that. I can do without email for 10 minutes out of my day. But I do like having my friend here to talk to.
All right, let's hang out.
And hang out.
Let's hang out.
I'm going through some tough times.
Let's hang out.
Thanks.
Okay. Did you see that Facebook picture I posted?
I was on holiday with Sir Lawrence Olivier. We had decided that 9/11 was an intelligence operation. We'd all known about JFK. He had so many mistresses. The CIA shot him. Castro could never have done it. It was clear. We had become realists, conspiracy realists. How would we let everyone know was the question. We decided to buy T-shirts that told the contents of our hearts and minds to the world. We went to shop.truthattease.com. Even though the internet hadn't been invented at the time, we went to shop.truthattease.com. There we purchased Conspiracy Realist T-shirts, one of a kind, sold only at shop.truthattease.com. 100% cotton in men's and women's fitted sizes. I won't tell you which one I'm wearing.
Team Black Sheep is deeply connected to the passion of flight and tries to share it with an ever-growing audience through dynamic camera shots from never-before-seen angles. They get to show you places from all across the world through their unique perspective. They were featured in a Journeyman documentary. Their videos have also been seen on YouTube as well as numerous and various TV programs. You can find out more about Team Black Sheep if you want to. You can go to team-blacksheep.com. Please welcome the CEO of Team Black Sheep, Raphael Pirker. Hi, Raphael. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Raphael.
How are you?
Yeah. So, we're laughing because I was nervous about saying his name. So, anyway, getting his name right. But could you explain your technology to our listeners a little bit? You know, what is it exactly, and how did you start?
Well, what we do is we take commercial, regular, off-the-shelf available remote control airplanes, and we put on a video camera and a video transmitter. and we pair that with a video receiver and video goggles on the ground. So you can get actually the pilot's perspective of the remote control airplane as you're flying around. And so this is how we started, and around 6 years ago, and ever since we've been trying to push the range, so we can now fly up to 20, 30 miles away from the base station and actually experience the world from the vantage point of a model aircraft, fly around in mountains or cities.
Wow, yeah, you can see lots of footage if you go to the website and YouTube, right? You can see really nice videos.
Yeah, they do.
They're really awesome, yeah.
Yeah, they're really neat, and they just kind of flow. And I was just saying the videos are really neat. They kind of it's a perspective you don't get to see very often. And so what inspired your name, Team Black Sheep?
Well, we've always been the black sheep of aircraft. So wherever we went, people were just flying around in circles, and we flew this straight line. So everything we did was a 180 to what everybody else was doing. So the name kind of came naturally, the black sheep of the family.
Very interesting. So what was just first of all, were you, was your family always involved in remote controls? Did you play with them growing up as a boy? What was the inspiration or idea that sparked you and inspired you to go further with remote control technology?
My uncle has always pushed me kind of into RC. I've been flying RC since I was 8 years old. So I've always been into this hobby. But I kind of stopped in my teens and then got back into it when this camera technology became available and affordable. So this kind of re-sparked my interest into remote control airplanes.
How far can they fly from the controller? So from the person it's a remote control, just like a regular car, right?
Yes.
Like a remote control car.
The record that we've done is around 50 miles. Some people have already pushed it to 60 or 70 miles. So the distance is mostly limited by the battery capacity.
And when you fly, do you get what type of reaction do people on the street have when they see these things going by? Have you seen some funny or strange reactions before?
Well, it looks first of all, it looks kind of strange to them, so they naturally stop and just watch, and some people just walk on because they're not interested, and some people stay and ask questions. But the reactions are 99.5% positive. Some people are concerned about privacy. They think that we're spying on them, but our technology is not really advanced enough to see. To see in a high enough resolution to be able to recognize, for example, a person's face or something. So once we show them, how it looks like from the air, that concern is immediately gone.
So are there any rules and regulations so far for these? Because they look, if you fly one too high, can't you is it a danger to any aircraft, basically, like helicopters or airplanes, or can it go that high where it would be in conflict with an airplane or helicopter?
Yes, it could easily go that high. The thing is whether you want to do that or not. There are already laws that you cannot endanger people, so that it's kind of it's a very new technology, so the laws have not been written yet. The FAA in the U.S. is announcing rules by 2015.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be delayed even further, so it's going to be another 1.5 to 2 years until in the U.S. at least there are real rules. It's a little gray area at the moment.
Very interesting.
At least in the U.S. I mean, for example, in Austria, they just announced rules for the 1st January 2014. So we already have laws which pretty much restrict us now to 500 meters radius.
Wow.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to figure out how much I need a converter.
Sorry. around, let's say around half a mile.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I really need to learn how to do that in my head.
Yeah, it's not a very accurate conversion, but
yeah, it's close. Okay, got you.
But just to give you an idea, we have this technology that can go 50 miles easily, and the law now restricts it to within half a mile.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Got you. But I'm wondering how do they regulate? I guess, God forbid, something would have to happen, because I don't think, do you think there'll be policemen, walking around, measuring how far somebody's flying? You know?
Well, no, I mean, the problem is it's unenforceable, because as soon as you go further than 500 meters, you have no visual line of sight to the aircraft. So, either the policeman sees the person and he cannot see the aircraft, so he can't prove it was beyond 500 meters.
Yeah.
Or he sees the aircraft and he can't see the pilot, and then he can't see it's beyond 500 meters. So the laws are really unenforceable. It's not really something that concerns us greatly, but they're there, so you need to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, got you.
Gotcha. And speaking of that, I mean, do you ever have concerns about the invention being used for sort of malevolent intentions on people, or bad intentions to, I don't know, spy or do things that you wouldn't necessarily want them to do with it?
Well, some would argue they are already being used in Afghanistan for such purposes.
Are you allowed? Could you expand on that more? Are you allowed to talk about that, or?
Well, I mean, the U.S. military is using drones to shoot at Taliban or civilians. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Not really something that I personally agree with. That this technology is being used. So. I mean, a lot of the criticism from the press that we get is, aren't you giving terrorists ideas? And I would argue that dropping bombs on their heads with drones would give them. Inspire them more.
Yeah, I know. No, we're with you right there. That's yeah.
Right, because hasn't the government already been doing that, and also for spying and going over, because they've used them for not just for dropping bombs, but also for CIA intelligence operations to spy on their enemies and such. So I'd say that probably is a little more bad influence than what you guys are doing.
This is more or less. This is more about a democratization of this technology, so it's getting more accessible to the average Joe in terms of price. You can buy these now at B&H in New York. You can buy a drone which flies around 300, 400, 500 meters. So it's really something that creative people are now using to get a new vantage point for their films or just for fun.
Yeah, they're pretty affordable too. The shells, they weren't as expensive when I went on the site. They weren't as expensive as I imagined before I went on the site. So that's very good. So we kind of covered. I was going to ask who uses your products, but filmmakers, right? Artists.
Adventurers. I like to call them adventurers because it's not. It doesn't really matter if they do it for a commercial reason or for hobby purposes, but it's just to see the world from another viewpoint and experience how to say to discover new angles for a certain place.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So I saw one of your videos where there was a boat overturned. It was called the Costa Concordia. Do you know what happened with that? It was just
it was off the Italian coast. I'm not really sure what happened. I think that the captain was trying to show off and show the passengers how close he could get to the island, and he ended up getting too close. So they hit, the boat sank, and I think 4 people died or 6 people died. I can't really remember. It was quite a tragedy, and we thought it would be cool to, because all the media footage that we've seen was just from a boat or from the island. So we thought it would be cool to really show the boat up close.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting perspective because you hear about, disasters and you can't really get a really good perspective.
Yeah.
So this is, I can see this not only being used by cinematographers or adventurers, but also maybe reporters, and it's going to open up a whole new world. I think, for me, this technology is just as important as the guns, in a sense. Where, I don't know, are you familiar with We Are Change?
No.
They use a lot of they use cameras, right? They go and interview people and they confront politicians who don't really.
Oh, they interviewed us. Yeah. It's a blog.
They have a blog. They also have a YouTube page. They do videos. It's a bunch of things. But yeah, like.
Yeah, the name sounded familiar. They
Luke Wadowski?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, don't worry. It's okay. Don't worry. Yeah, but yeah, because this is a way too. The people that are using media. Media is very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very, very one-sided, for lack of a better word. And now with the internet and alternative media, people are able to get other perspectives. Out into the world. So also with these shells for these cameras, I can see it being a huge asset. I mean, like we talked about, of course, yes, it could be used for malevolent, spying or whatever, but it also on the flip side, I see it can be used as a huge asset to empower people. Maybe with these cameras, somebody can catch somebody doing something unlawful, and, it's very interesting.
Maybe that's why they're being restricted.
Oh, of course, please. It's never really. I don't believe it's really for our own safety. It's.
Yeah.
No, that's why. It's definitely no.
Right, because as we mentioned before, our government has the technology, so why shouldn't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, definitely. Do you have any plans to make shells for traveling underwater? Is that possible?
The underwater, the problem is the radio link doesn't work underwater. So you have a lot less range underwater, so it would need to be tethered. Like the robots you see that went down to the Titanic, they've all been tethered to cables.
Got you.
It's certainly very interesting, but for me personally, I'm more about experiencing flight.
Yeah, but you like to fly, right? You're not like to swim, right?
No, I'm a diver as well, but more like to experience that weightlessness. But for flight, it's more of a seeing a lot of things in a short time span.
So what?
Sorry.
Oh, so you said you're a diver. Do you where have you dove?
In Egypt, Thailand, wherever I go, I usually take a day off and dive. I have the PADI, advanced diverse license or whatever it's called. So.
That's awesome. I would really like to get my PADI in the future. I would love to dive. I'm just, huh?
You should try it. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, people tell me that. It seems so complicated, but I swim a little bit, and oh my God, I would love to get my PADI. Have you, since you dive, have you talked to other divers, or have you experienced for yourself any fallout from Fukushima? Because we get news here telling us things, and you don't really know unless we go out to ourselves to really see what's going on. But I would imagine people that dive or land in an ocean have more of an idea of what's really going on within the oceans and the radiation.
Yeah, I haven't heard much. No.
Okay.
I haven't been diving lately. I'm working all day. So.
Oh, okay. Got you.
And I saw an article recently, I think it was about you guys, and it said, it was talking about the delivery drones that are, there was what was it, a lawyer? He said that the drones should be able to deliver beer. Like it was kind of a funny story. So can you tell us about that? That sounds kind of funny.
Yeah, that was in Forbes magazine. That's my lawyer, Brendan Schulman. Because we're in trouble with the FAA. But he basically argued that if there's no obstacles, no unknown obstacles, it should be okay to use that. And in opposition to that, the FAA argues that commercial use in the U.S. is currently unlawful.
Gotcha.
Among other laws.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you think about, technology? I know this is pretty technologically advanced, compared to what I grew up with, understanding. So do you think that there's sort of a limit on how much we should actually keep, how much we should keep looking for things like this, or keep trying to discover these types of inventions, or do you think sky's the limit? We can just keep going, and they can.
I think we should keep going. I think new technology can always be used for bad, and I don't think that this fact should limit our imagination.
Do you think that we're sacrificing a part of ourselves by going further? Like, do you think that there's such thing as playing God too much?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. For me, it's really, just to see what we've come, or how far we've come in the past 6 years or so, I'm really looking forward to the next 5 to 6 years.
That's great. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. It seems like we're just about out of time, so we want to thank you for being on the show, and we want to would you please let our viewers know where we could see or find you again, please, or any of your products?
You can find us on Facebook /Team Black Sheep, all in one word, or you can visit our website www.team-blacksheep.com. Or you can find us on YouTube by just typing in Team Black Sheep, and there's a lot of videos there.
All right, cool. Thanks, Raphael. Thanks for being on.
Thanks a lot.
Great. Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Jason Bermas is a filmmaker that has worked on several controversial independently released films such as Loose Change, Fabled Enemies, and Invisible Empire, among others. Jason released Shade, the motion picture, with Shepard Umbelas on October 2013. All of Jason's work can be purchased, however, free versions are available on YouTube. Jason encourages people to make copies of his work and pass them out, as well as hold screenings for non-profit educational purposes. Please welcome Jason Bermas to the show. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun last time. Glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. Thanks for being
back,
Jason.
So we want to bring you back on the show to talk a little bit about a subject that we touched on a little bit last time, which is technology. And we have a guest in our segment. We had him on earlier from Team Black Sheep, which creates drone plane cameras for lay people or average people. So, what are your thoughts on people being able to own and access these? Let's start off with that.
Oh, well, the bottom line is if the government can own it and we have all these other entities that have drone aircraft, I don't see why civilians should not be able to have that technology. However, if they use that technology to breach somebody's privacy by, say, hovering over their backyard, looking into their windows, using it for law enforcement without a warrant. I think that there are some real issues there. I don't think drone technology is going anywhere. I think that you're going to see it explode over the next 10 years. And not only in these kind of quad rotor drones that you're seeing more and more of, the commercial ones that can either, the Parrot drones that are out there that can fly for 15 minutes or a half an hour and now an hour. But there's actually ball drones out there that not only, they're in the shape of a sphere and they kind of have the quad rotor propellers inside it, but at the same time they could fall to the ground and also go across terrain. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of different types of drones, and just like any technology, it can be used to empower or enslave humanity. So I personally don't have an issue with somebody who has a business and is trying to put cameras on an already existing technology and put it out into the consumer market. I think it's actually a good thing. I could definitely see myself using that kind of technology at a shoot, especially something like a Bilderberg event or something like that. News agencies are now using drones more and more to get that big overhead view. So, innately, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like you said, if the government has access to it, then why not, why not us? The government are people just like we are. So, we make them divine, give them all this power. And a lot of people, a lot of people in power, they use it to their own advantage, not necessarily for the good of the people. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you find that there are certain people who kind of are just really anti-technology just in general, and so, if, negative or people go to one extreme or the other, shall I say. So in some ways, some people will just be completely anti-technology, and then there's others who, if you point out negative aspects of technology, they get offended, as if, you're sort of undermining our evolution. So what do you sort of say when you come across something like that?
Well, I think it is obviously a very, very fine line. Obviously, we would not be speaking to each other 3,000 miles away. Me in New York, you in California, and you, April, seem to be in yet another location without technology. This was not even available, 15 years ago, where we could put together a podcast or a radio broadcast through the Internet. And not only that, but you can put a video broadcast together as well. I could easily flip on my camera. You could see me, I could see you, and I think that is empowering us to communicate with each other over long distances. Now, on the other hand, with it coming out now, it's got to be almost 2 months ago, that the NSA can openly access your webcam or other devices without you knowing it through a back door. I mean, this technology has been around forever. I've been talking about it. I've been saying that obviously with them tracking, tracing, and databasing literally everything you do online, of course they're tapping into people's webcams. So you have to keep your guard up. I have a removable webcam. The one on my laptop has a piece of tape over it.
Yes. I was going to say, yeah, of course I have tape on my webcam too.
That's what I do. Yeah, we all do.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if I want to share, myself and my home with another person, I take my webcam, I put it on top of my monitor, and I allow that person to have access to it. When I'm done with that, I immediately take that webcam down and I put it into utter darkness. The one problem that I do see is the fact that you can have your audio tapped at almost any time, whether it's through your cell phone or, I have a small USB board right here. My microphone sits out. There's also a microphone built into my webcam, and things like that can be accessed with virtually no knowledge by the end user whatsoever, especially with technologies such as the Kinect. And there are governments out there that are looking at these types of technology, especially the Kinect, and they're utilizing them in what? Government programs. For instance, South Korea is now protecting their border with Kinect technology. Their motion sensors were not as advanced. They could never tell the difference between an animal that was approaching or a human being that was approaching, but using the Kinect sensors, well, they can know exactly what is approaching with the several different layers of camera, the infrared, the motion detection camera, and of course the VGA camera. I think that's I think it's pretty much standard of 960 540 right now, which isn't a huge resolution, but still out there. And on top of that, if they wanted to, they could also tap into the audio recognition technology that's in there. Now, on one end, this provides an abundance of entertainments for family. It allows people who bought their little Xbox Ones to sit on their couch and say Xbox on, and they don't even have to go to the remote control, and people look at that and say, wow, this is great. But on the other end, if they're not taking precautions and unplugging their Xbox or disconnecting their Kinect on their original 360 when not in use, well, they're running the risk of a type of surveillance that most of us would not be comfortable with. In other words, surveillance within our homes.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the Kinect technology? Is it a type of a sensor technology? Do you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been talking about this probably since 2008, 2009, when it was just Project Natal. And the original Kinect was not as good as this new one on the Xbox One, but basically the same technology. You have these 3 separate types of cameras, one of which is a standard webcam, but then there's a motion sensor and a heat sensor. And on top of that, it runs algorithms through its separate microphones that has audio recognition. So if you're sitting there with your family and you're playing a trivia type game and you want to answer, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to swipe your hand down. It's going to see who hits the virtual button first, and then it's going to know based on that person and their voice who's answering the question. And so if Johnny chimes in, but Mary hit the button first, it will say, well, you can't answer yet. Mary gets to answer. So, you're seeing a device that's pretty sophisticated as a consumer device. Now, on top of that, you've had other people in the technology world. Taylor Veltrup is somebody that I look at in awe, who have kind of reprogrammed the Kinect in order to control robots. The NAO bot, which is one of these little commercialized robots, depending on which model you get, they're between like $3,000 and $20,000. And you saw it in, if you watch Eastbound and Down and you watch the last season, Kenny Powers buys his kids one of the NAO bots. And he was actually, years ago now, able to hack into the Kinect and control the NAO bot through his motions on the Kinect. And when he wanted to control the robot's individual digits, in other words, his virtual fingers, he's only got 3, but he's also got kind of a wrist-type device. He hacked Wii controllers and used the sensors in the Wii controllers to control just the hand. So Taylor, and you can see these videos online, will stand there and he will start to lift up his leg and, do a virtual walk, and then the robot will walk forward or walk backward based on Taylor's motions. And if he wants the robot to grab something, he'll then move his arm, and then he will use the Wii controllers in his hand to manipulate the robot's fingers, and the robot is able to hold a knife, pick up a tissue, cut through a banana, you name it. And these are just some of the very crude robotic uses of that type of technology. We haven't yet to begin to see what the consumer possibilities are and what's out there in the world of DARPA and Boston Dynamics and now Google, who owns Boston Dynamics, and all these different robotics companies that are making huge leaps and bounds in this field.
What are your thoughts about children being so heavily equipped with technology these days, like computers, video games, iPods, stuff like that?
That's a tough one for me. I've got a 9-year-old niece, and she was over here. I'm not sure if it was last weekend. It was either last weekend or the weekend before. Actually, it was last weekend. They had stopped in just really early, and she was going on a field trip to a museum, and she doesn't have a digital camera, and she doesn't have a cell phone or anything like that. However, she's 9 now, and she looks like she's 12 or 13. She's huge. She's like 5 feet tall, and you look at this little girl.
Oh, no,
she's already, who knows?
The chicken, yeah, yeah.
Very possible, but she's smart as a whip, and she's been on the computer since she was about 2 years old. At 2 years old, she was grabbing a mouse, and she was, not surfing the web, but playing little kids games. But by the time she was 4, even before she had gone to kindergarten, she knew how to navigate the internet. She's playing Flash games online. Obviously now with the touchscreen and tablet technology, she's very familiar with that. She loves Angry Birds. So I had myself a 3GS that was lying around, and I said to myself, you know what? They're not going to activate this as a phone, but it'll be a nice little play device for her. And then on top of that, she'll have a camera, and she can take video or photos on her trip. So I gave it to her. Now, I'm hoping that my brother is going to be responsible, and if he does decide to activate that phone, there will be limitations, such as I wouldn't allow my 9-year-old niece to have 24/7 unregulated internet access, which is what you're doing when you're giving your kid a cell phone.
Yeah.
I would say, give her the unlimited talk and text, but don't allow her to connect to the internet anywhere. And then, even then, of course, they're Wi-Fi capable, so anytime that she can connect to Wi-Fi, she has the ability to, again, surf the internet and go just about anywhere. And remember, this is a double-edged sword. The internet can be a great tool for my young niece, but there are certainly things on the internet that I don't think I want my niece to see. So, you've got to be mindful. You've got to be like, hey, let me see that device for a second, and then maybe go into her browser on Safari and check out her history and make sure that she's not going somewhere she shouldn't be going, or that it's not being accessed to do things that, a 9-year-old shouldn't be doing. When I was 10 years old, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that somebody had a wristwatch that played Donkey Kong with Mario on it. I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I can't wait to get this. I believe I got one by the time I was 11, just a little digital wristwatch that did that. And I was like, wow, well now, you have an unlimited supply of games. You can put emulators on these things, but obviously the App Store is full of different type Candy Crush, Tetris, you name it, it's out there. Nintendo's even starting to get into the fray on this thing. So, once again, you have to toe that line. I really enjoyed what Louis C.K. had to say about it. And he was on Conan O'Brien probably about 2 or 3 months ago. And, they were talking about it, and he was like, well, what do you do when the kids are coming to you and they want the cell phones? And, my kids are like that, and they're like, well, everybody else has them. And he goes, so what? I go, no, they can't have that. And he's like, but, well, what do you say to him? Look, I'm not there to be their friend. I'm there to be their parent. I'm not raising my children right now. I'm raising my children to be the adults that I want them to be in the future. And if you give them no limits, you give them no self-control, if you let them be like all the other terrible kids out there, basically crap in, crap out. So he was rather eloquent and intelligent when talking about that. And not many people are. Now they say, it's kind of like when I was a kid, if you didn't have Nikes or Reeboks and, even Adidas, me, 20 plus 25 years ago when I was in grade school, those weren't cool enough to wear. You had to wait until you were a teenager before that, and Puma and all these other kind of brand names became cool. And if you didn't have those shoes, if you had the Paylast brand, you'd get picked on. You probably had to get in a fight or two on the playground. And I would say that's probably going to be the same thing for her generation. Other kids will laugh at you if you're rocking a BlackBerry or have no cell phone at all, or you have a flip phone and you don't have a souped-up Android or one of the latest iDevices. And that's just the way of the world. That's always going to happen. There's always going to be, I guess, a class of people, not only children, that look down on others because they don't have the bells and whistles and the toys that are on the television. But I think that you actually build a lot more character when you have those kind of roadblocks and obstacles to get through. And I think that really the more that you struggle in life, and not always, you want to give your kids the best life out there, and if something's reasonable, obviously you can have that discussion, and sometimes there's a time for limited technology. For instance, again, I didn't give her, a cell phone with unlimited data, and, she has this thing, and her parents don't know about it. I gave it to her pretty much as a glorified camera and device, and how it's used is the real question. But the problem is that most people are completely ignorant of how it can be used on the negative end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying earlier, you're basically saying that adversity builds character, right? You're talking about like how they need to be able to figure things out for themselves. And I'm a teacher, and I teach part-time, and I think I agree with what you're saying about Louis C.K. And both April and I do, we talk about that all the time. And as a teacher, I feel like these devices are taking away their creativity, their empathy, and their character. And I told my students a couple days ago, if they write me one more essay talking about blowing somebody up or killing somebody or video games, I'm going to fail them. And I feel like maybe I'm a bit, controlling or fascist or, like maybe I'm curbing their freedom of expression, but at the same time, I feel like teachers and parents are going to have to take a stand for what's going on, because the negative aspects are from my point of view, are kind of overwhelming from what I'm seeing as a teacher, No,
I would absolutely agree. Once again, if you just give people technology without any type of context whatsoever on how it can be used for both the positive and the negative, you are going to get those abuses. You are going to get the mindset of, the blow-em-up games. For me, and I remember how excited I was on Christmas morning. I want to say it was back in 1987. I'm an 8-year-old kid, and we unboxed the Nintendo, and we're able to play Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers. Oh man,
memories. Yeah, I remember that. I still have my old one. I still have my gray. Yeah, I do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a good feeling, and there were still limits then. When I was just a kid, it would be an hour or two you got to play, and I remember a couple years before that, we had the Atari 7800. Definitely not as cool, but still.
That was whack, man. What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Nintendo was where it was. Atari, I get off my show, man. Who do you think you are?
Original racing game. All that stuff was really fun, but my parents put limitations on it. You couldn't just get out of school and play from the, moment you got out of school to the moment you went to bed. You had your chores, you had your time outside, you had the parent coming in every once in a while and saying, hey, I think you've been on this for a while, the next time you die, or the next time the game ends, it's time to put it down for a bit. And on top of that...
Or they might just come in and plug it.
That those were more anger moments when I was being defiant, sure. But at the same time, my parents also really did not have to worry about the content of a video game as it was geared towards children, and there wasn't this mature realism that is now set in video games. You can now have kids that aren't even teenagers, and they're already well versed in Call of Duty type games, Halo, games where you're chainsawing people in half, you're blowing off heads. The graphics are hyper realistic. They're from a first person perspective. I mean, the first game that I ever saw from a first-person perspective was, of course, Wolfenstein 3D and then Doom. And those were during my teenage years, and even though they were crude, it was almost that shock factor that, wow, I'm really shooting a guy this time. I'm actually shooting a Nazi soldier, and, a little bit of pixelated blood would come out, and that was about all you had to worry about for another 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Until you got to the point where all of a sudden the Super Nintendo and the Genesis were now carrying the mature-related content of Mortal Kombat. And, I grew up on Mortal Kombat. I absolutely love Mortal Kombat. I think that dropped when I was about 14 years old. At the same time, with the finishing moves, it was still cartoonish to me. Now, I don't know if that had been introduced to my life when I was 8 or 9 years old, if that's the same thing. I think a lot of it has to do with the hands-on approach of the parenting. So I definitely see your perspective as a teacher with young people, and all they're talking about is shooting and killing this. Well, that's what's on the television constantly. I mean, look what
and joining the military too.
That's
freaking me out too. I have kids that's like, I want to join the military for the sole purpose of killing people, so I can shoot people up and go to other countries and killing people. It's really disturbing me.
That is very disturbing, but you got to remember that mentality was around, 100 years ago when Hemingway joined the military, and really the only reason that Ernest Hemingway admittedly joined the military was to find out what it felt like to kill a man. So I think there is that inherent kind of chest-beating, primal sense of, I'm going to go in there. I mean, I'm a big fan of mixed martial arts. I love, before this, I was catching up on the UFC that I missed last night, and I think that, there are some people that won't allow their children to watch that. I understand it. I look at it as a sport. There are rules, but combat is in our nature. But once again, combat without context can be very, very dangerous. If you have people that are worshiping, say, a Nazi mentality where it's just okay to round up certain groups of people, execute those people, put them into camps, there's a problem. If you're looking at combat as a way of self-defense against the bad guys, and you say, well, you know, there are going to be the bullies in the world, you have to be able to stand up for yourself, maybe it's time to take karate or a mixed martial art or jiu-jitsu, and you give it to somebody, in that context, I think it's wildly different. But I don't think it's going anywhere either. And I think as far as the youth being trained now to join the military, it's everywhere. It's not only in these first-person shooting video games, but if you go to any film now that's rated PG or above, you are inundated with a very cinema-style military commercial where you're running towards which way would you run, you know? Like you're running towards the disaster. And that is going to be extremely influential on somebody who's 10, 12, 14, 15, sometimes 18 years old. And that's the point. That's what they're doing. They're trying to raise a generation that will join the military right out of high school.
Yeah. It just makes me really upset. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, since you guys are talking about education, you know, we interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago about this thing, the Common Core, that they're pushing in schools, the districts these days. And one of the things that he was talking about is, like, a lot of these technologies that they're pushing towards the kids, these smart boards, the tablets, and things like that, are sort of taking away other skills. Like at my son's school, the teacher flat out admitted they don't care about penmanship anymore because everything is keyboarding or, you know, typing on tablets, so they're not concerned with that kind of stuff anymore. And you know, and also I have an autistic child who, he's 9 and he doesn't speak, so they're pushing a lot towards using an iPad for a communication device, which seems okay, but I've been kind of pushing to also be teaching sign language because I'm like, well, what if, you know, these things aren't around anymore? Like, what if he doesn't have it on him? Shouldn't we also be, you know, doing things that are we can do just without, you know, the use of technology, just with ourselves? But anyway, this guy we interviewed, Clint Richardson, he was suggesting that some of this stuff is kind of pushing towards transhumanism. So, do you think that that's true, or do you see that trend happening?
Oh, the transhumanist trend? I posted about it today. You know,
okay. Well, there you go.
I mean, for instance, there is no doubt at this point that there is absolutely a transhumanist trend among the biggest name in technology, in my humble opinion. A lot of people will say, whoa, you're talking about Apple? I'm really not talking about Apple. I'm talking about Google, because even if you have an Apple device, if you want to search anything, guess what? You're using Google. Android has taken off. Google as a company has now enveloped the world of robotics and artificial intelligence. You know, from that purchase of Boston Dynamics that I alluded to earlier to the artificial intelligence firm DeepMind that they acquired just last month, and the fact that over a year ago now they put Kurzweil at the top of the Google food chain. He's one of the top 10 guys there, and Ray Kurzweil is Mr. Singularity. This is a man who has been predicting this now for 30-plus years. He's written books about it. He's openly discussed it. He still openly discusses it. He just gave a conference where he talked about how they're trying to make Google into a sentient being, and that is exactly what their goal is.
Like HAL? What is that computer from 2001? HAL,
yeah,
like
well,
that?
Actually, some of the when Disinfo posted, disinfo.com posted it, that's exactly the graphic that they used. They used the graphic of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I would go even farther beyond that, as that is just kind of a self-aware robot. This is going to get much worse. You know, he also discussed having Google know you better than your partner. You know, whether, you know, that be your spouse, they'll know you better than your parents.
And her. We have her.
Yeah, well, I was just about to get into her in just a moment after we talked about her.
Okay, go on.
Because I watched that film, and what a creep fest. But Kurzweil is not wrong in the sense that technology is doubling at a very, very rapid pace. Artificial intelligence is a reality, but when you start talking about a singularity, and even one of the founders of DeepMind, the artificial intelligence firm that was bought by Google, has said he does believe that eventually robotics and AI will eviscerate the human race, will put us extinct. Now, whether that means that we upload our consciousness into machines, as Kurzweil has alluded to, or that we become sentient beings that merge with technology, which also Kurzweil has alluded to in an earlier state, we are going to map the human brain. We are more and more becoming cybernetic, I guess, in certain factions. For instance, we now have prosthesis for people that have lost arms and hands, where it's an arm, it's a hand, it responds, you can pick things up, you have opposable digits, your thumb rotates. Brain chips are now a reality. They're now talking about them being used in the military to suppress bad memories. Ooh, let's suppress the bad memories with brain chips. I posted a story. I posted a story earlier this week where they took rhesus monkeys and they put electrodes on one rhesus monkey's spine. They put it into a state of paralysis. Some kind of, the thing was not paralyzed, but they used chemicals and injections to paralyze the monkey. And they put a brain chip in a separate rhesus monkey. And that rhesus monkey was able to unparalyze the subject and have it move around based on its own thoughts. So obviously, this could be used in a manner to stop paralysis in human beings. That's technology empowering humanity. But if you go on the other end, let's say somebody has one of these brain chips and has these electrodes on their spines. Well, if it can be remotely controlled by another monkey, that means it can be remotely controlled by another human being or entity. That's not so much empowering. That has the potential for what? Enslavement. Yeah. And now kind of going full circle back to her, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but I've watched the movie. And I'm a big Spike Jonze fan, by the way. I've been following Spike Jonze since he was directing Daft Punk music videos, and I thought he was very inventive then. I love being John Malkovich. I think Jackass is hysterical, and he's produced all those films. He's a producer on the TV show. For those that don't know, he's the little old lady, I believe, in number 3 and number 2, gets dressed up like, Johnny Knoxville's the guy, Spike Jonze is the woman. He does this movie called Her. Now, I went into this movie thinking that this would be a developmental relationship over 90 minutes to 2 hours, and maybe like the last half hour or something would be like the serious relationship between an operating system and a human being. Boy, was I wrong. Within the first 15 minutes, that relationship is established, and it really is about this person who has now fallen in love with his operating system, is conducting an actual, not only physical, but emotional relationship as if this person is his significant other, and it's not an isolated incident. In other words, the full population, which is kind of thrown out there in the beginning as kind of this Google Glass population that's walking around with their smart devices, but at the same time checking their email through their glasses, and the types of things you are going to be seeing in the next year to 5 years and going on an exponential level, to the point where this guy is crushed when, the operating system isn't responding in the manner that he wants it to. And my complete favorite part in the film is about midway when he goes to date a real live girl, a pretty girl. He may not hit it off with her, but they're sitting there and they're making out, and she just puts it on the line that, she doesn't want a one-night stand. She wants, a relationship with another human being, and he can't commit to that relationship even before he's really, because he's fallen in love with this operating system, and she looks at him and she calls him a creep. And he's like, no, I'm not. No, you're a creep, dude. You are a creep. That's part of the film. You're a creep.
We see that, though. I mean, it makes me wonder what direction have we taken in our evolution as humans that has caused people to want to go to operating systems. And then you see those robots. Have you seen those robots that the Japanese have built that are really human-like?
Yes, I have.
That people are starting to get into those. And then we have, I don't know, just... what do you call that? Is it called like anime porn or something?
Oh, the anime porn. The Japanese, but then again, I just posted a weird story where, I hadn't heard of this thing before, but where men are not just dressing up like women, they are taking latex molds of what are supposed to be women's faces and bodies, and they are dressing themselves up as these things, and they don't look like women, man. They look like Michael Myers or Leatherface, and they're calling it female masking. And apparently, the BBC has already done a documentary on this subculture of human beings. And I don't want to sit here and judge from my high horse and say, wow, that's twisted. But wow, that is twisted. Like, you take a look at these people, and it is just some of the most scary, disturbing stuff, like straight out of a horror movie, and somehow people are finding pleasure, and I would assume sexual pleasure in this thing. I don't get the furry subculture. I don't get the female masking subculture. I don't get the people that are into other people that have limbs removed, or some people that are getting their limbs amputated just for their lover. It's bizarre. It's twisted. It's not the way we're supposed to be developing as a species.
Sorry, go on.
You're always going to have anomalies. What I'm into may not be what you're into, and I completely and totally understand that. But I feel like the more perverse, the more odd it is, the more of kind of an attraction it draws, and the more people are pulled into that. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they've kind of alienated themselves for any kind of real human emotional interaction.
Yeah. But and so maybe they had an event or something to happen to them that made them that way. I was listening to Ray Kurzweil, and he was saying, no, we're going to merge with machines. And my issue with that is like, well, okay, if you want to merge with machine, if you want to become a cyborg, if you want to become Data, like Star Trek, that's cool, but I don't see why it has to be something that has to happen, that's going to happen whether we want to or not. And that, to me, that kind of attitude is very, very disturbing, because you're pushing your ideals on other people who may not necessarily want to do that,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, there are those differences, but when you talk about even like one traumatizing event, I don't think it's just one at times. It definitely can be, but there are those people out there that are just socially awkward. There are introverts. There are extroverts.
But it's this hatred of humanity that seems to be brewing from this transhumanist. There's part of it is because, they really, in their mind, they're thinking that they're advancing the human race, but I feel like there are other people that want to destroy the human race, that hate humans as they are, and they want to make something better or different,
Well, absolutely. I work for a tech company, and I sit in the office of the president. We share an office together, and behind us is about 9-10 other people. And some of the anti-humanist garbage that I hear that goes on in my office is simply repulsive to me. I feel like a generation has been raised to hate children, to not love the sanctity of life. Oh, kids are gross.
Jack Fresco hates children.
Yeah, well...
He's a jerk. I hate it. He's a genius. I think his ideas are genius, but, benevolence and intelligence doesn't necessarily equal benevolence, and he's a jerk. He talks shit about children all the time, and I'm sorry, when you said that,
No, I can't stand it. For me, somebody who, wants to be a parent one day, wants to have a family, a functioning family, would love, I'm very skeptical about the whole marriage thing, but it would be great if I could find somebody who wanted to be my partner for the rest of my life, and we loved one another, and we worked together, and we overcame all those, difficulties and adversities that come with any kind of a human relationship. But one thing on my bucket list is to have and raise a child, hopefully a boy, so I can be a Little League coach. I want those things, and I don't see anybody from my generation or even the generation after mine, the 20-somethings out there, with that mindset anymore. They don't want the kids. They find it like it's almost like a disease. You're diseased if you have children. You're bad if you have children, especially if you have like 2 or 3 kids. By the time you're in your mid-20s, what are you doing? You're bad for the environment. You're bad for this. You're bad for my taxes. You're bad. And then I have to hear all this pro-transhumanist garbage about how great Google is, and Google's going to know me even better, and there are the people with the smartwatches already that are linked into their Samsung Note 3s, and to me, again, that little wristband that's on your arm isn't inherently good or evil, but what it could represent in the future, and, an AI that is listening to your every single word is extremely dangerous. You know, I don't want to dump on my workplace too much, but for instance, this month, they tried to institute a policy where they would have not only a kill switch on your phone, but erase everything on your phone if you wanted to have your email through Gmail on there. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't even give my mother that type of permissions over my phone. And it's not like they bought me the phone. They don't pay my bill every month. If that were the case, well, you know, if they want their killer erase switch because it's company property, okay. But I pay my own bill. You know, I totally didn't do it. I was like, look, there's not a chance, the snowball's chance in hell that I will ever do this. As soon as I saw that I'm giving you the permission of not only being able to access my phone whenever you want, but able to erase all the documentation on it, all the photographs, all the videos that I've taken, there's no way. It's never going to happen. And, you know, they talked to me, and I was like, look, you could talk to me till you're blue in the face. It's never going to happen. Oh, we'll talk about it in 30 days. In 30 days, you're getting the same response from me. I'm sorry. I can still check my email on my phone just like anybody else can through any internet device. There's no way to block that. But because it was going through these specialized apps, aka Gmail or Hangouts or anything like that, they wanted this special app to make sure that, you know, if my phone went away, that they could erase everything. And I'm like, well, what about hackers? You know, if somebody were able to hack into the accounts, wouldn't they have that ability? And what about your service technicians, the administrators you put in charge of this? What if they get disgruntled and they decide that they want to erase it? I was just like, look, there's just no way, no chance in hell I'm giving anybody the permission to do that to my phone. For instance, I don't even have the Facebook app on my phone. Why? Well, because it openly states that it will have access to my text messages and phone calls. Well, no, you won't. And that's what I'm talking about being aware of the technology around you. You know, for instance, how did we communicate and set up this interview? Through Facebook, a tool to empower us. How can Facebook go into my phone, see who I'm contacting, calling, texting, and then build algorithms about that on how they should advertise to me through Google AdSense? Well, I'm sorry. I'm not down with that program, and I'm going to do everything in my power to fight it.
And it's funny, they're all doing it too. Like if I mentioned the iPad earlier, I mean, you go to these things and you have to sign in your account. You have to have an account for everything. Microsoft does the same thing with their new tablet. You have to have an account for everything. They force you into these apps if you want to like access, like let's say if you want to buy, you know, a game or something. You know, they force you into signing up for an account through them. You have to have one of their accounts and then you know, just to get an app. You can't just like buy one and have it on your computer. You know, it's like they have to know who you are at every time, at every account. And going back to what you were talking about with the film Her, I was thinking because I saw this interview not so long ago, and I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a psychologist, and he was researching the effects that technology, specifically pornography, has on people, and he kind of correlated this to this extremely high level of men these days who are having problems with erectile dysfunction. And I'm sure that there's something environmental as well going on, you know, through our water and all that Lord knows with everything that's in there that's affecting us physically and whatnot. But I found that when you were talking about that, it reminded me of that interview because I'm going, this is sort of interesting that this guy is like, he's aroused by this, you know, take this device or something, but, you know, when it comes to a real woman, he's like, oh, I don't know, you know, I can't commit. And so he thinks that that's what's going on with a lot of these guys is that they get so detached from, like, being with a real person that then they can only get aroused in the presence of, like, their computer, like
with the joystick, basically.
Yeah, exactly. which is really good. It's just sort of that's just really, really creepy. I don't know if you'd heard about that, but that to me is really, really creepy. And when I saw that film, I haven't seen the movie yet, but it just kind of reminded me of that. Like, oh, that's sort of where we're headed.
Well, I think that also, you know, we're kind of being programmed into what we're supposed to like. Sexually.
Yeah.
And I think there's no better example of that than the meme that was posted probably about a month ago, and it just kind of smacked me in the face, where somebody literally just took one picture of Justin Bieber and one picture of Miley Cyrus, They cut it down the middle in a sandwich fashion, and all of a sudden, I mean, there was literally no difference between these people's facial features. It was like looking at, one with the makeup and one without the makeup, and if you look at it, those two people have been propped up like, the top of the line, most attractive people on the planet, the people you are supposed to sexually desire the most, and they're the same. They are virtually the same.
Thank God.
Yes, it's like no gender. There's a lot of gender confusion too, because because Miley's sort of masculine, and then Bieber's sort of feminine. It's like you're saying, they look the same, and then one's a boy, and one. I've almost said one's supposed to be a boy and one's a girl, but they're very similar in their appearance. I think that lends to that whole gender confusion too, of this generation. That it's you're not supposed to, like, male qualities, or qualities that are too male or too feminine are negative. So we all have to kind of be the same, which isn't.
Well, it's kind of that metrosexual idea that we were fed, 10 years ago with Queer Eye for the straight guy, and all of a sudden, it's fashionable to frost your hair and wear lip gloss and maybe put some eye makeup on as a guy, and I never got that. I never thought, hey, that's how I want women to see me, as this kind of demasculated, non-male-like, non-threatening person. I mean, I'm already non-threatening enough, I just don't get it, but that was just a huge wake-up call to me, because I got to admit, I'm just like everybody else. I don't have Miley Cyrus albums. I don't listen to her music, but when I saw her, for instance, on Saturday Night Live this year, I was like, wow, she's really funny. I like the parody of her song with John Boehner and Michelle Bachmann. Obviously, I may not agree with it politically, but it's funny stuff, and she's a talented girl, and, it's not like I'm following Justin Bieber, but at the same time, I'm on all these different news wires all the time, so it is an impossibility for me not to see what's going on in the Biebster's life. I mean, it's all over the place. The fact that Belieber has made it into the popular vernacular is a testament to that marketing machine. And, I had never put those two together kind of in that respect until I saw that meme, and I'm like, wow, they're selling both sexes the same sort of garbage. And it has to be a coordinated effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit. We had a huge jump in technology. I would say, you seem like you're more of an expert than me, but or you are more of an expert in this, that we've had a huge jump since World War II in technology. Do you think, that we've had help from extraterrestrials?
No.
I just asked.
Let me be the first to say absolutely friggin' not.
Why not? Tell me why.
Here's the deal, ladies.
What?
Now, before I got into anything parapolitical, any kind of 9/11 truth, anything like that, I kind of grew up on the UFO subculture in the sense that even when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, my father got that Time Life series, the Mystery Series. It was the Read the Book commercial, for those that can remember that far back. Back in the 80s, you'd watch TV and they'd talk about UFOs or Bigfoot or paranormal experience and read the book. And these hard-covered black books. And at that point, when I was a kid, I thought that UFOs weren't even real. Now, obviously, UFOs are real in some sense. There are unidentified flying objects. There are craft out there that are not traditional. There's plenty of video and photographic evidence to go by in that sense. So that piqued my interest as a kid. I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting stuff. I was a big believer in alien intelligence. I grew up on the Alien Autopsy video, which is hosted by Number 2 from the Star Trek franchise. I remember when that hit Fox News. I remember later on in the mid to late 90s when I started to get a little bit more internet access and I could download the whole thing with no commentary, get as many UFO videos as I wanted. I was able to get the Majestic 13 documents. I read all the way through those. I was a huge believer in gray aliens and extraterrestrials and all that sort of thing. Now, as I kind of got into the politics of it more and more and realized that this stuff was never really substantiated beyond the photographs and videos of actual craft that were being filmed. So that kind of took me aback. Now, on top of that, the fact that the media has been so adamant of kind of throwing this idea out of aliens and what they're supposed to look like, and especially over the last 10 years, that they are in fact our gods and that they created us. And I know that Von Daniken's work goes all the way back into the 60s, and we can talk about, why can't I remember the guy? Sitchin, where, he supposedly went through all these scrolls, the Sumerian texts, and it talked about an Earth where we were visited by extraterrestrials and they were mining for gold. That stuff has never been substantiated. I remember watching the original Ancient Aliens before it was a TV series, and it was piquing my interest with all those different types of paintings. There is a great video out there called Ancient Aliens Debunked, and I'd say it does a very good job of debunking about 95% of what is out there. And an excellent job. And when he gets down to the Nephilim, the creatures that were supposedly the offspring of aliens and man and these tall beings, he says, look, I can't really go against that claim. It's in the Bible. Maybe they were really angels, as they said. Maybe they existed. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. And, he's pretty humble in that respect. I do find it that supposedly these large elongated skulls have now been tested for DNA by somebody who's not a ufologist, and he claims that the DNA is not human. I would love to follow up on that. But when I look at stuff like that's total and complete garbage from people like Stephen Greer, who just gives me all sorts of bad feelings every time I see him, Sirius, the movie, it's the same reconstituted crap again and again and again and again. And there was more times where I would see Stephen Greer and his quote-unquote bodyguard, who I suspect is his sexual partner, by the way. I think he's a closeted homosexual. I think that the man is extremely compromised. I know he has a wife and kids, but the way he looks at this guy, the way he presents himself, I don't think that's a far stretch. I think this guy's got secrets to hide for some reason as well. And, again, I'm not coming down on the guy because, I think he's gay. I'm coming down on the guy because I think he's gay and he's holding it a secret, and that will compromise you. If you don't want that sort of thing being known by the public, obviously you're going to do everything to shield that information, and you're going to compromise yourself. And the fact that he's talked about talking to the good people in the Rockefeller family, and that they have the 0-point energy from the aliens, and that, he's starting to mix in 9/11 as a conspiracy into the alien conspiracy and the Bohemian Grove, and he's got Hollywood star Tom Jane voicing over the narrative, and it is utterly just crap in and crap out. I don't know if you've seen the documentary, but I just thought it was awful, and I was expecting so much and hoping for so much more. I am very much on the fence on, whether extraterrestrial life has ever visited here. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that there's no other life in the universe and that we're the only intelligent beings. Absolutely not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when people like Paul Heller, who is the former Canadian defense minister, is out there talking about different races of beings and, the Disclosure Project, it's dangerous. He doesn't have any first-hand knowledge of this. He's never been debriefed that alien life has existed. He's never come into contact with an extraterrestrial, yet he's espousing it as fact. And I watched the entire Disclosure Project press club thing back from, I think it was back in 2000 or 2001. It was right before 9/11, actually, that they had that, within a year of 9/11, that they had that forum where all these different military leaders came out. But one of the people who was in the military, who had worked with, why can't I? He's the Nazi NASA guy. He's basically, the head of NASA. In the old Disney movies, when they would go into NASA, he was part of Project Paperclip. She worked for him for years and years and years, and he specifically told her that the last step towards world government was when they started to roll out the aliens, and not to believe it because it would be completely faked, and that they would be basically bioengineered entities that were created on this planet, and that they would use different types of propulsion technologies in conjunction with holograms, aka blue beam, to fool the planet. And you've had so many world leaders out there, such as Reagan, talk about the possibility of an alien invasion, creating, this world where we would all come together, where we all forget our differences, kind of like this quote-unquote New World Order globalist mindset. You have to take a step back and say, is this a card that they, A, can play, and B, that they will play, and C, that we have been preconditioned to accept with movies like Independence Day, where how do we get together? Well, the entire world forgets its issues, and each military goes up, and they go and they kill the aliens, and we join forces. And it sounds like a great thing and a great idea, but the idea that our technology is coming from some far-off universe and that we as human beings haven't had the ability to create this, I think is absolute and utter nonsense. What we've created here and what is still classified in, the Lockheed Martin dungeons of the world, in the black sites, the Area 51s and beyond, is still so unknown to the public that, some of the stuff now that is, once again, commercially available, if you had taken that back 2,000 years, it would have seemed like magic. So there is my long and the short of it, I guess.
And so, since you think that there is so much technology that we're not even aware of at this point, do you believe that there's any limit on what we can create as far as technology goes? Like, for example, could artificial intelligence be created to have its own conscience?
That I do believe is going to be absolutely real. Like, all right, for instance, I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't say that I have every answer to, the human equation, I guess. I really enjoyed the debate between Bill Nye and I believe it was Ken Ham, creationism versus evolution. I lie somewhere in between. I lie in the camp of intelligent design. So for me, it's just such an open-ended question. The fact that we could be, programmed beings. Philip K. Dick was probably the first person to publicly espouse this kind of matrix scenario, but you can check out an interview from him in 1977, a great science fiction author, where he proclaims that we are living in this kind of virtual computer, aka matrix type universe. And if that is the case, if we are just some kind of glorified simulation for some other being, why is that any less relevant than, a God in the sky and a heaven and a hell? I don't think it is. I think that artificial intelligence is very real. Whether or not a self-aware robot or a self-aware piece of mechanics will have a soul, I think is another question entirely, or a possibility. But I think artificial intelligence in itself is inevitable. And I think it's going to be mind-blowing when we start interacting with it, the possibilities that man has become God.
There have been, evidence of like EMF frequencies, how it's killing like bats and bees, how it's affecting us as human beings, and some of the things that some of the ways that we're advancing technology, it's actually can long term hurt us, right? Like the cell phones cause brain cancer and all this stuff. How long do you think that we'll be able to sustain this way of life before we completely erode ourselves? Or do you see that any way that we could sustain this way of life as far as our technology?
Good question. I think that through technology, we could not only sustain the way of life we have, I think that we could actually progress and make the standard of living much better for the entire populace. I am of the mindset that we could triple, quadruple, maybe even have 5 times the amount of people on Earth. I'm not one of these population control junkies, but only if we were to empower ourselves through technology, only if we were to find a way where we were to use other technologies that weren't based on quote-unquote finite resources. And, they're out there. For instance, sugar is now being used as a battery, which is incredible in itself that, sugar that we seem to have more of than anything, whether you call it high fructose corn syrup, we could make those batteries again, and they're more efficient than lithium batteries. Go ahead.
No, you go.
So, I think that if we were to employ that type of technology, if we were to employ a lot of the technology where we were able to farm in a manner where, a lot of the zeitgeist technology is real. In other words, some of the designs that Jacques Fresco has put out there through his Venus project, where you had maglev trains, where you have cities built out in circles, where you have farming that is elevated, in other words, these farms that are built in dome shapes, in greenhouses that are on top of one another. If we employed that type of technology around the world, I think that we would thrive as a species. I think that the standard of living would absolutely go up. The only problem is, with that type of thing, the entire power structure would be challenged. So in other words, the oligarchs that have now, in some cases, been in power for thousands of years would be tested. You know, they wouldn't be seen as this omnipotent force that cannot be challenged. Even those that have made their fortunes in the last couple hundreds of years, you would have such a different paradigm globally onto where people fit into the spectrum, and that's not what the people at the top who control these things want. They want to remain in power rather than empower the general populace and have them rise up and challenge their standards of living.
Do you think that a lack of faith in a higher power drives fear into these oligarchs? Because they seem to be obsessed with trying to control the lives of other people, you know, or their own lives, their own fate, their own physical fate, whether, you know, controlling or trying to expand or extend their life, and also the lives of other people. So why do you, I mean, I know you don't know, but what is your guess on why do you think that is? I think it's from maybe lack of faith in a higher power or something bigger, or...
So the question is, why do I think that oligarchs are so dead set on keeping the rest of the population down?
Well, no, but like we talk about something like Ray Kurzweil, right? He wants people to merge with machines, and I was listening to an interview on him, and he was talking about like he's really into life extension, and he thinks death is a tragic thing, and he wants to, but yet, you know, he runs in the same circle with these oligarchs who talk about population control and how, you know, the world's population needs to be reduced. So it's like they want to extend their personal lives but control the lives of other people.
Yeah, and not allow them to have that technology. For
instance,
you know, Google has also bought Alcoa, which is a company that is dedicated to eradicating not only disease amongst human beings, but ending death. This is a real thing. We already have regenerative type technology that we've used on mammals. We have de-aged mice. We've gone probably far beyond that on the black sites that I've discussed. And that is the real question. So, in other words, you have a guy like Kurzweil who's talking about basically living forever. And this isn't a new human phenomenon, by the way. We've all been looking for the fountain of youth. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, the fountain of youth and that idea has been around for centuries, if not thousands of years. We do fear death as human beings.
Well, is it that there a difference, though, as far as looking better as you get older or extending your life? I think there is, because you...
What about de-aging? You know, I raised this is something that Kurzweil fully believes. And what if, you know, when you're 65 years old, you're given the opportunity to put a chip into your body, and not only will you not age, but over the next 5 years, you'll de-age 20 to 30 years to where you were within your prime, and then you will age at such a slow rate that, you know, you're basically one of these Norse gods in Thor where you live 5,000 years. Would you use that technology? I'm not so sure I would say no.
Then you get hit by a bus, you know.
Well,
you know, I just don't believe you can cheat death.
Well, I agree, but you know what? Kurzweil's going to argue, well, it's a good thing a few days before that you uploaded your entire brain, which we've already mapped, to a digital computer, and we're able to take your DNA and then build out the same exact flesh and blood body that you had, and then take that information that was uploaded into a computer and put it into that same flesh and blood body. Did you ever die? That's the big question. You know, those type of questions have been asked time and time again in not only sci-fi novels, but films like Arnold Schwarzenegger's, The Sixth Day, I believe it is. The Sixth Day is where they're flashing people's brains, and in the very beginning, you know, the star quarterback gets a neck injury and dies, breaks his neck on the field, and then a day later he's back because they've already recreated him and, you know, essentially uploaded his consciousness to this other being. And during the finale of that movie, you have this one gentleman who's uploaded his consciousness to one of these clones of himself, And he's not ready to die, but the other being that has just come into life wants to put him to death because there can be only one.
Well, when it gets to that point, it comes down to personal belief systems. Because I personally believe that our consciousness doesn't die anyway; it goes somewhere else. I believe, we were in a shell. Obviously, Kurzweil doesn't believe that. But that's at that point, that's what it comes down to. It's what you believe.
No, I absolutely do believe that, and you are correct. It is going to come down to belief systems. It is going to come down to religious beliefs, and it's interesting. That question, I don't think there is a possibility of it being answered. In other words, where does consciousness begin and end? Does it ever end? Is the soul a real thing? Is it an abstract idea? Is this person who's uploaded their consciousness into a computer? And you know what? The new Johnny Depp movie, where you have this scientist who's working on artificial intelligence, and before he dies, abruptly actually uploads his consciousness into a computer.
But then you're stuck in a computer. That fucking sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you think about it that way, I'd be pissed.
But there are those that would, again, argue that we are already stuck in a computer program.
Like, you play basketball and swim, you're in a fucking computer. What are you going to do? You sit on a desk? You know what I mean? What are you going to do? You can't fuck? What are you going to do? You're a fucking computer.
And again, those questions have to be out there, but, what would consciousness like that even feel like? That's another question. And I don't think it can be answered. And with her, it tries to ask that question as the self-aware operating systems begin to band together and communicate with one another. What exactly are they, and what are they experiencing? But when you take it to that next level, that this consciousness, if you will, this brain mapping can then be uploaded into a very real flesh and blood mammal. Well, I mean, how much different is that? I mean, if you end up falling in love with, somebody who was around 100 years ago, and this is just still them on their second or third body, is it really them? Is it not them? Do they not laugh? Do they not smile? There are real questions to be asked, and when you get to Kurzweil's ultimate singularity, where we essentially become beings of light that can travel the universe and then morph into any physical shape that we want to, basically through our consciousness, what are we then? Are we an extension of human beings, of that type of consciousness, or are we something completely different? Or is that even possible? I think that's the big lie. I don't think that we as human beings or human consciousness can really ever achieve that. He believes we can.
Well, I'm glad he made keyboards. That's all I have to say. He makes a great keyboard. His ideal systems, I don't know. I really am in conflict with that, because I think he's a genius. He's created a lot of things, but I mean, I don't think that, I think people have a tendency, just because somebody is a genius or intelligent, they want to allow them to make all their decisions for them, and I don't think these questions that we're talking about are being asked. They should be asked, because, we're putting our hands we're putting our fate in the hands of these people who we consider geniuses, who might not necessarily have our best intentions in mind.
Right. And I absolutely agree.
Yeah, just like with the medical industry, we see time and time again, people give their powers away to doctors and just do what the doctor says, and then they get sick.
Or they die.
Right, or they die, and that is more damaging to people, than just not going to the doctor at all sometimes. Of course they have their value. Where would you go if you broke your leg, you got hit by a bus, but a lot of these things are unnecessary, so there's always that, finding that balance, I would say. So, well, on that note, we want to thank you so much for being on our show today, Jason. It's been a lot of fun, as always. You're always a great guest, and welcome back anytime. And so, but before you leave us, can you please remind our audience where they can find you, what's the best website, and all that good stuff?
Sure. Everybody can follow me on Twitter at Jason Bermas. That's BERMAS, or Facebook.com/Jason Bermas. You can check out all of my films: Loose Change, Final Cut, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, Fabled Enemies, and of course my latest Shade the Motion picture online for free on YouTube and other share sites. I encourage you to get hard copies of the DVDs, make copies of those DVDs, hand them out, have screenings, and share this information with others, because if we even want to be a part of the conversation such as the one that we just had on this radio show. We have a lot of fighting to do against the state of tyranny that we're in, not only in this country, but around the world.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Well said.
Well, thank you.
Okay. And so everybody stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, Virstyne and I will close out the show. But Jason, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we'd definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthatease.com. I gotta think of the middle eight. Shop.truthatease.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthatease.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
I mean, everything that we introduce to the world is shitty. Meaning white people. Because I really think that white people are from like another planet. Because when we came to America, it was so nice. It was just Indians. And they weren't even Indians. We called them that by accident. And we still call them that. Like we knew in a month that it wasn't Indians, but we just don't give a shit. We never correct it. We came here, they're like, hi. And we're like, hey, you're Indians, right? And they're like, no. No, this is India, right? No, it's not. It's totally other place. You're not Indians? No. Ah, you're Indians. You're Indians for hundreds of years after. We ruined everything here. This was it was just coast to coast, just green and brown and beautiful. And all the humans were just walking around with painted faces, just walking. And they'd be like, ooh, that looks yummy. And then they just eat from the ground. And then they'd sleep on the grass. And they'd wake up and they'd fuck. And then they'd go for a swim and do a little dance. That was the whole continent, was just folks doing that. I mean, there was people in Mexico cutting off kids' heads and rolling them down the pyramid stairs. But that's always going on. What are you gonna, you can't do a whole lot about that. But I think we came from another planet, and the reason is because we don't like it here. I mean, why, if we're from here, if we belong on Earth, why aren't we comfortable on Earth at all? We need nice smooth surfaces and right angles, and we need it to be cool and not too hot, just perfect. Like, why wouldn't, when it's hot, why wouldn't we just, fuck it? Why wouldn't we be like that if we belonged here? And it's weird because people that aren't, whatever you call there's environmentalists, and then there's people who are whatever, they just hate environmentalists. But that's what people get angry at environmentalists, because they think they're slowing down the economy and creating restrictions. And a lot of these people are Christian. A lot of these people are very devout Christians. And that's such a confusing thing to me, that if you believe that God gave you the earth, that God created the earth for you, why would you not have to look after it? Why would you not think that when he came back he wouldn't go, what the fuck did you do? I gave this to you, motherfucker. Are you crazy? The polar bears are brown. What did you do to the polar bears? Did you shit all over every polar bear? Who did this? Who spilled this shit? Who spilled this? Come over. Did you fucking spill this? What is that? It's oil. It's just some oil. I didn't mean to spill. Well, why did you take it out of the fucking ground? Because I wanted to go faster. I'm not fast enough. And I was cold. What the fuck do you mean cold? I gave you everything you needed, you piece of shit. Well, because jobs. What is a job? Explain to me, what's a fucking job? You go, like, you work at a place and when people call when their game doesn't work and you help them figure it out. What do you do that for? For money. What do you need money for? Food. Just eat the shit on the floor. I left shit all over the floor. Fucking corn and wheat and shit. Grab it and make some bread. What are you doing? Yeah, but it doesn't have like bacon around it and like I like when it has like bacon on it and
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. So, hey, Virstyne, we just did 2 interviews. The first was with Team Black Sheep Raphael Pritchard. Did I say his name right? Pritchard?
I think so. We'll try.
Okay.
He's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah. So, you know, I guess, you know, we're saying it to the best of our ability. I'm getting red now right here.
I know. Well, he was a really nice guy, and he's CEO, one of the CEOs and founders of Team Black Sheep, and we talked about them and their technology. And then after that, we interviewed Jason Burmis, who is a filmmaker, and we wanted to have him back on because the first time we had him on our show, we had touched on technology, and he seemed like he knew a lot, but we didn't really get to do a full interview on it because, you know, it was the first time we had him on, so we kind of just touched on all the stuff that he's involved in. But we had him back to just focus on technology, and it's really good. As usual, he's a really interesting interview, and he just, you know, has plenty to say about just about everything.
Yeah.
So, but I liked it. I thought we had, you know, we touched on, I guess, what is this constant struggle between the pros and cons of you know, accessing technology. Have you seen the movie Surviving Progress?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, there's a documentary called Surviving Progress. It's on Netflix. You can stream it on Netflix. You can use that technology to watch it. It essentially talks about the, you know, how the downside of our so-called progress and these things that, you know, there's like a threshold basically that this is how they describe it, is that there's a threshold of you reach a certain point and then some of the technology starts to cause problems. Like it's, you know, there's a benefit to developing, you know, penicillin, and, you know, you can save people's lives with it, but then at a certain point...
You take too much, it kills all the good bacteria, enabling you to get more colds, right?
Exactly, and then enabling you to get sicker, and you cause it a whole host of problems if you use too much penicillin, take too many antibiotics. Then bugs can then become resistant to it, and so on and so forth. And then they have to develop new ones and stronger ones and all this other kind of crap. So there's a certain threshold of, you know, where does technology go from being a benefit to being a where it starts to go downward. And so it's an interesting documentary. I thought it was really good.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's called Surviving Progress. So you can see all the downsides of building urban development. They talk about that, and freeways and highways and all this stuff. And we talk about the pros and cons of access to computers and the internet. And go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, well, I just want to say that sounds awesome. And, you know, maybe we can get the makers of that movie on or something to talk about it, because I want to do more shows on technology. I want it to be an ongoing conversation. You know, I don't think this is our second show. We've actually done one on technology, talking about this before, but I like the idea because it's something that's going to be in our lives and it's not going away. And I think this is a dialogue and a conversation that needs to keep going. You know,
it might go away. To be honest, I don't necessarily know that this stuff is going to last forever, because, you know, if you think in our history. In the 1970s, we had an energy crisis, and everybody knew that we were running out of oil, and everybody knew that, you know, energy was something that, we were using a finite resource in order to give us energy, and yet that didn't change. But now we're consuming more. I think there was an interesting interview with Joni Mitchell, the singer, and she was talking about that. She was saying, you notice how we're using more technology, we're using energy more and more and more, we're consuming it more and more and more, and yet we were told we had to conserve it like 40 years ago, but yeah, we keep using it more and more and more, even though we're actually having less than we did back then.
So I'm thinking, if it goes away, then are we going to go away with it? That's the thing.
Some people might.
So, like, I'm sitting right here.
Well, I just think, that's where you just don't become dependent on it. That's where I think use it for what it is and, have your fun and games with it, but don't become dependent on it. And don't think for a second that it's good for your health, because it's not. Get outside, get away from it once in a while.
But I have a Wii, come on. That's how I get my exercise in. I'm kidding.
You're right. But fine, you have a Wii, but also go outside and actually play tennis or actually talk to people and get off of it for a while.
Talk to people, yeah, please. No, I tease my kids about that. I talk about technology with them sometimes too, and they'll say stuff like, "But I have a Wii," or Minecraft, helps your brain. I'm like, no, not really. Yeah, not really. Not like you think, Playing the violin or learning a language is going to help your brain more than that stuff. And you're going to be able to use it more in the real world.
Yeah. We're out of time here, so we want to thank our guest, Raphael Pritchard from Team Black Sheep, and Jason Burmis. Check out his movie Shade, the motion picture. Until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.
Peace, truth, and love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium, digital and smoke-free, a diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstructionist, politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. I've been uplinked and downloaded, I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the upside of downsizing, I know the downside of upgrading. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm new wave, but I'm old school, and my inner child is outward bound. I'm a hot-wired, heat-seeking, warm-hearted, cool customer, voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface with my database. My database is in cyberspace, so I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time I'm radioactive. Behind the 8 ball, ahead of the curve, riding the wave, dodging the bullet, pushing the envelope. I'm on point, on task, on message, and off drugs. I got no need for coke and speed. I got no urge to binge and purge. I'm in the moment, on the edge, over the top, but under the radar. A high-concept, low-profile, medium-range ballistic missionary. A streetwise smart bomb. A Top Gun bottom feeder. I wear power ties, I tell power lies, I take power naps, I run victory laps. I'm a totally ongoing Bigfoot slam dunk rainmaker with a proactive outreach. A raging workaholic. A working rageaholic. Out of rehab and in denial. I got a personal trainer, a personal shopper, a personal assistant, and a personal agenda. You can't shut me up. You can't dumb me down, because I'm tireless and I'm wireless. I'm an alpha male on beta blockers. I'm a non-believer and an overachiever, laid back but fashion forward, up front, down home, low rent, high maintenance, supersized, long-lasting, high-definition, fast-acting, oven-ready, and built to last. I'm a hands-on, foot-loose, knee-jerk head case, prematurely post-traumatic, and I have a love child who sends me hate mail. But I'm feeling, I'm caring, I'm healing, I'm sharing. A supportive, bonding, nurturing primary caregiver. My output is down, but my income is up. I take a short position on the long bond, and my revenue stream has its own cash flow. I read junk mail, I eat junk food, I buy junk bonds, I watch trash sports. I'm gender-specific, capital-intensive, user-friendly, and lactose-intolerant. I like rough sex. I like rough sex. I like tough love. I use the F word in my email, and the software on my hard drive is hardcore, no soft porn. I bought a microwave at a mini mall. I bought a minivan at a mega store. I eat fast food in the slow lane. I'm toll-free, bite-sized, ready to wear, and I come in all sizes. A fully equipped, factory-authorized, hospital-tested, clinically proven, scientifically formulated medical miracle. I've been pre-washed, pre-cooked, preheated, pre-screened, pre-approved, pre-packaged, post-dated, freeze-dried, double-wrapped, vacuum-packed, and I have an unlimited broadband capacity. I'm a rude dude, but I'm the real deal. Lean and mean, cocked, locked, and ready to rock. Rough, tough, and hard to bluff. I take it slow, I go with the flow, I ride with the tide, I got glide in my stride. Driving and moving, sailing and spinning, jiving and grooving, wailing and winning. I don't snooze, so I don't lose. I keep the pedal to the metal and the rubber on the road. I party hardy, and lunchtime is crunch time. I'm hanging in, there ain't no doubt, and I'm hanging tough, over and out. Thank you.